Evicting a tenant can seem like a complicated process, but in this video we'll quickly explain the eviction laws in Tennessee and outline some simple steps that landlords can take to initiate an eviction. We're eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal documents. In this video, we'll talk about what the eviction process looks like, how Tennessee law affects evictions, how to legally remove a non-compliant tenant from a property. Be sure to watch to the end of this video to find a link to a fillable eviction notice that meets Tennessee requirements and that you can customize to fit your needs. First, what is an eviction? Eviction is the process of legally removing a tenant. Even if a tenant has done something wrong like not pay rent, it's illegal for a landlord to change locks on a property or physically remove a tenant from that property. If the tenant refuses to leave after violating the terms of a lease agreement, a landlord must seek an eviction from the court. Eviction is different from the simple termination of a lease. A landlord can opt not to renew a lease after the specified term has ended. There is no need to involve a court in this process. If a tenant in Tennessee fails to pay rent or breaches the terms of a lease agreement in some other way, the landlord can issue an eviction notice. There are 5 versions of this form to choose from in Tennessee. Let's take a look at each one. The first, known as an immediate notice to quit, should be used when the tenant is caught engaging in prostitution or illegal drug activities on the premises. This notice tells the court to vacate the rental unit immediately or face a formal eviction. Another version is the 3-day notice to quit. This one gets used if the tenant is found engaging in illegal behavior that is not related to prostitution or drugs. Examples are willful violence, unsanitary activity, or posing a threat to the safety of other tenants. These violations are considered incurable, meaning the tenant has no option to remedy the situation. The notice gives the tenant 3 days to vacate the property. The 14-day notice to quit gets used when the tenant fails to pay rent on time. This notice notifies the tenant to either pay within 14 days or face an eviction action in court. The 30-day notice to quit for non-compliance gets used when the tenant breaches the conditions of the lease in some other way that isn't related to the payment of rent. An example is housing an unauthorized pet. This notice tells the tenant to either resolve the matter within 30 days or face being evicted. The 30-day notice to quit for non-compliance shouldn't be confused with the 30-day notice to quit that ends a month-to-month tenancy. The latter one can be used by either the tenant or the landlord and essentially just informs the receiving party that the other party does not intend to renew a monthly lease after 30 days. There's no requirement of a lease agreement violation with this form. A copy of the appropriate notice to quit should be delivered to the tenant. If the tenant doesn't respond to the notice appropriately, either by paying rent or resolving a curable matter within a certain time frame, then the landlord is legally able to initiate an eviction proceeding in the General Sessions Court. The landlord does this by filing a form known as a detainer summons with the General Sessions Court, where the property is located. The court will use this form to set a hearing date. Once the hearing date has been set, a copy of the summons must be hand-delivered to the tenant by a local sheriff. The tenant must receive the summons at least 6 days before the hearing. If the tenant fails to appear in court or if the judge rules in the landlord's favor, then the possession of the property is returned to the landlord. At this point, the court will issue an order called a writ of possession, which authorizes the sheriff to remove the tenant and the tenant's belongings from the property if the tenant refuses to vacate. From eviction notices to court documents, we have got everything you need to get eviction proceedings going in Tennessee. Click the link below to get started. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to find other helpful videos about relevant legal topics.